What happens to your brain, body, and life when you quit porn for good? A 90-day journey revealed. Before we dive into this powerful journey, here's a question that might hit closer to home than you expect. Did you know that the average porn consumer spends more than 11 hours each month watching adult content? That's nearly half a day lost to pixels on a screen. And what's even more surprising, neuroscience now confirms that this regular habit can literally rewire your brain, shrinking certain regions, dulling your reward system, and reducing your ability to feel real-life pleasure. If that sounds alarming, it should be, because we're not just talking about time wasted. We're talking about your mental health, your relationships, your motivation, your sexual energy, and even your identity as a man being affected. So if you've ever wondered what actually happens when you quit porn, what changes in your brain chemistry, your focus, your emotional resilience, your love life, then buckle up, because what you're about to learn could genuinely change your life. Make sure to tap that like button, share this video with someone who might need it, and subscribe so you don't miss future insights that could help you take control of your mind and body. Also, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Have you ever tried quitting porn? How did it go? Or are you thinking about it now? Your story might just be the spark someone else needs to start their transformation. Introduction: the hidden power and the dark side of pornography. Have you ever stopped to ask yourself, what is porn really doing to me? Not just in the moment, but over days, weeks, even years. Why is it that something which starts as harmless curiosity can grow into a habit that feels almost impossible to break? Why do millions of men, even those who are smart, disciplined, and successful, find themselves stuck in this cycle of guilt, craving, and regret? Pornography has existed in one form or another for centuries, from ancient statues to underground literature. But the game changed completely in the last 2 decades. With high-speed internet and mobile access, porn has become more accessible, more extreme, and more addictive than ever before. A single tap opens the door to unlimited novelty, available 24/7, and your brain wasn't built to handle that. Experts call this the supernormal stimulus, a term used to describe exaggerated versions of natural rewards that hijack the brain's dopamine systems. According to Dr. Gary Wilson, author of Your Brain on Porn, repeated exposure to online porn mimics the kind of neural conditioning seen in drug addiction. MRI scans now reveal that excessive porn use can shrink the brain's reward centers, weaken emotional regulation, and even delay gratification, all critical components of healthy decision-making and meaningful relationships. I know this not just as a researcher and a content creator, but as someone who lived it. For over 15 years, I was deep in that world. I started like most guys, a bit of innocent curiosity in my teens, sneaking old VHS tapes or magazines. But as I grew up, so did the internet. And soon I was watching hours of content a week, constantly chasing more intense material. Even when I didn't feel good about it. It became my escape when I felt stressed, lonely, or bored. But it also became a source of shame, disconnection, and low self-esteem that I didn't know how to face. At first, porn felt like a harmless outlet, a safe way to explore fantasy and release tension. But as the years went by, it transformed into a crutch. I began to notice how it was affecting my focus, my energy, and my relationships. I'd feel numb after watching it, less motivated the next day, and awkward during real-life intimacy. I kept telling myself I could stop anytime, but I never did. Until one day I did, and everything changed. Since quitting, I've experienced a cascade of unexpected benefits: sharper concentration, more confidence, deeper emotional connection, and yes, a dramatically improved sex life. And I'm not alone. Thousands of men in online communities like NoFap and Reddit's Reboot Nation have reported the same thing. A sense of rebirth, as if they've finally reclaimed their manhood and clarity. But here's the real question we all need to face. What exactly keeps us so hooked? Is it the dopamine rush? The escape from emotional pain? The endless novelty? And more importantly, what does this addiction cost us in the long run? That's exactly what this video is about. We'll explore the science, the psychology, the real-life consequences, and the incredible transformation that can happen when you finally step away from porn for good. So stay with me, because by the end of this, you might just see yourself and your future in a whole new light. Why do people watch porn? The science behind the habit. Let's start with a simple but powerful question. Why do people watch porn in the first place? The short answer? Because it feels good. But the long answer is far more complex, rooted in brain chemistry, emotional coping, early exposure, social conditioning, and even loneliness. For me, and for millions of others, the initial draw was a mix of novelty, comfort, and curiosity. It wasn't about addiction in the beginning. It was about finding an escape, a safe space where you could feel pleasure, excitement, and control without needing anyone else. Porn became the perfect shortcut to a dopamine hit, a surge of that powerful chemical your brain releases when you experience reward, motivation, or pleasure. Let's be clear, dopamine isn't evil, it's essential to life. It's the molecule that motivates you to pursue goals, form relationships, take action, and survive. But modern porn hijacks this ancient system. Instead of receiving dopamine in moderate, natural amounts, like from exercise, connection, or intimacy, your brain gets hit with massive, artificial spikes from watching hyper-stimulating sexual content. And unlike other pleasures that fade after a moment, porn's novelty is endless. With a click, swipe, or scroll, you get a brand new fantasy, a new scene, a new scenario. Your brain is being trained to crave more, newer, faster, every single time. A brief history and my personal experience. Let me take you back to when I was 15. Porn back then came in the form of old VHS tapes. Yes, those clunky, awkward cassettes you had to physically go find. Whether you borrowed it from a friend or sneaked one from a dusty drawer, it took effort and planning. The content was limited. You watched what was available, not what you specifically desired. There was a beginning, a middle, and an end. It was finite. You pressed rewind when it was over. Fast forward to my 20s and everything changed. With the rise of high-speed internet, smartphones, and streaming platforms, porn became instant, infinite, and invisible. No more waiting, no more rewinding. Suddenly, there were hundreds of thousands of videos across every category imaginable, available for free, 24/7, in complete privacy. What once required effort and shame could now be accessed alone in the middle of the night, with no one knowing. And let me tell you, that changes how your brain responds. At first, I told myself it was harmless, just a release, just entertainment. But slowly, I noticed something more subtle creeping in. An increased need for more extreme content, a longer time spent browsing, and a sense of dissatisfaction afterward. I began using porn as a way to escape real-life stress, emotional pain, and even boredom. It became less about pleasure and more about numbing myself. What the science says. Porn as a super stimulus neurologically, this behavior makes perfect sense. Research by Dr. Valerie Voon at the University of Cambridge and studies by Simone Kuhn and Jürgen Gallina, 2014, have shown that repeated exposure to novel sexual stimuli overstimulates the brain's reward pathways, flooding it with dopamine in amounts far beyond what you'd get from natural activities like eating or having sex with a real partner. This overstimulation eventually desensitizes the brain, meaning you need more content, more novelty, or more intensity to feel the same excitement. Psychologist Dr. Norman Doidge calls this phenomenon neuroplasticity gone wrong. The more you condition your brain to respond to screen-based stimulation, the less it responds to real-world intimacy. Real people, real relationships, and real emotions begin to feel flat in comparison. It's not your fault. It's how your brain adapts to overstimulation. In effect, porn becomes what scientists call a supernormal stimulus, a highly exaggerated version of something natural that hijacks evolutionary survival systems. Birds have fallen in love with fake, oversized eggs. Mice will starve themselves to death in favor of stimulation. And humans? We get stuck in infinite scrolling loops, training our brains to chase dopamine like a drug, while real life feels increasingly dull. Real-life consequences, my wake-up call. By the time I reached my late 30s, the impact became undeniable. Despite watching porn regularly and getting that momentary dopamine release, I started to feel drained, disconnected, and strangely disinterested in real-life intimacy. I wasn't depressed in the classic sense, but I definitely felt off. I lacked motivation, struggled to concentrate, and felt emotionally flat, like I was moving through life in low resolution. I didn't notice it overnight. It was a gradual erosion of energy, drive, and presence. I'd spend an hour watching porn at night, go to bed late, wake up groggy, and wonder why my work or relationships felt stagnant. I was numbing myself instead of addressing my stress, loneliness, or emotional needs in healthier ways. Porn wasn't solving anything. It was just delaying the inevitable crash. And when I started looking into the research, everything clicked. It wasn't just about willpower or morality. It was neurochemistry. My brain had adapted to the dopamine flood by downregulating natural pleasure receptors. In simple terms, I couldn't feel joy from normal things anymore. That was the real cost. If this resonates with you, hit that like button and share this video with a friend who needs to hear this. Drop a comment below if you've ever felt the same, drained, distracted, or disconnected. Your story could be the encouragement someone else needs to start their own journey. The turning point. Why I decided to quit porn. If you've ever hit rock bottom emotionally, you know what I mean. When I say pain is often the greatest teacher, for me, the real wake-up call came after a painful breakup, one that cut deeper than I expected. I was in a serious, committed relationship. We had plans for the future, shared routines, inside jokes, and what I thought was a stable emotional connection. But beneath that surface, something was quietly eroding our bond. My dependency on porn. Now, to be clear, the breakup wasn't just about porn. Relationships are complex. But looking back, I see how porn subtly damaged the emotional fabric of our intimacy. I struggled to be fully present. I avoided vulnerability. And at times, I felt more aroused by pixels than by the living, breathing woman next to me. That's not just sad. It's a red flag. The screen had become more emotionally accessible than the person I loved. Porn had slowly taught my brain to expect perfect, instant, and consequence-free gratification. But real relationships don't work like that. They require effort, patience, communication, and empathy. All things that porn teaches you to bypass. I became emotionally lazy. I stopped initiating real connection and started relying on solo sessions to self-soothe instead of turning to my partner. Porn as a coping mechanism that backfired. After the breakup, I spiraled. I didn't want to feel the pain, the grief, the loneliness, the questions about what I did wrong. So, like many men, I turned to porn. At first, it felt like comfort food for the soul, a quick escape, a way to shut off the overthinking and emotional ache. But within days, I realized something disturbing. I wasn't just using porn for pleasure anymore. I was using it to avoid reality. Every time I felt bored, sad, or stressed, I clicked. Not for fun, but for numbness. It was like putting a bandage on a wound that needed surgery. And every time I came back to it, I felt less human, more hollow. Porn wasn't solving the pain. It was just postponing it, keeping me stuck in emotional quicksand. Psychologists like Dr. Patrick Carnes have spoken extensively about this dynamic. According to his research, porn acts like a psychological comfort drug, a short-term strategy for emotional regulation that creates long-term problems. What starts as stress relief ends up becoming stress dependency. You don't get rid of the problem. You bury it until it grows roots. Facing the real addiction, not to porn, but to distraction. That was the true turning point for me. The moment I realized I wasn't just addicted to porn, I was addicted to avoiding my own emotions. I was terrified of sitting with discomfort, terrified of being alone with my thoughts. I was using porn to disconnect from myself, my pain, and even my potential. That realization hit me hard one night. I was alone watching porn for the third time that day, and afterward I just stared at the ceiling, feeling this deep emptiness in my chest. That's when the question hit me. Not a small passing thought, but a deep internal challenge. It turns out this isn't just a placebo effect. A 2001 study by Exton et al. Observed that testosterone levels stabilize or rise slightly after a period of abstinence. Combine that with improved sleep and fewer mental distractions, and you've got the perfect storm for productivity. I replaced my old rituals with new ones. 20 minutes of breath work in the morning, intense gym sessions in the evening, and phone calls with old friends instead of mindless scrolling. Each of these micro changes compounded into a snowball effect. Instead of numbing discomfort, I was facing it and thriving in it. Real life example. I completed a major work project I'd been procrastinating on for months. My boss actually noticed and commented on how much more engaged I seemed. That one moment validated everything I'd endured so far. But here's what no one tells you. During this phase, you'll also face phantom urges, triggers that come out of nowhere when you least expect it. A scent, a memory, even a random thumbnail on YouTube. But I treated each trigger like a teacher, not a threat. Why did it hook me? What pain was it trying to soothe? Every craving became a lesson in self-awareness. Call to action. Are you in weeks 2 or 3? Feeling that shift in energy? Comment below what habits are replacing your old ones. Your story might inspire someone else to keep going. Days 31 to 60, confidence, emotional clarity, and deep self-respect. This is where it gets powerful. By the 4th week, my inner state began to stabilize. The chaotic cravings that used to control me were now more like whispers. Still there, but easy to ignore. And what replaced them was something I hadn't felt in a long time: self-respect. Your dopamine system starts to regulate. A 2020 review by Park et al. Explains that when you stop flooding your receptors with artificial stimuli, those receptors slowly recover. They become more sensitive to everyday joys. That means you start finding real pleasure in things you used to ignore. Food tastes better, music feels richer, sunlight actually lifts your mood. But even more importantly, you begin to trust yourself. You look in the mirror and see someone you like again. For me, this was the turning point in my emotional healing. I found I was more patient, especially with loved ones. I had deeper conversations. I started listening more. My relationships improved, not because I was faking anything, but because I was more present, more available, no longer hiding behind a screen or a fantasy. Example, I reconnected with a woman I had briefly dated before the breakup. This time, I showed up without hidden shame or distraction. We talked for hours about real things, life, purpose, dreams. And I realized I was capable of real emotional intimacy again. Call to action. If you've made it to day 30 or beyond, you're already in rare company. Comment, "I'm in," if you're pushing through the 30-day wall, and don't forget to like this video if your confidence is coming back stronger than ever. Days 61 to 90, sexual power, emotional depth, and real relationships. The final month was transformative on every level. It wasn't just about avoiding porn anymore. It was about who I was becoming. By day 60, my sex drive returned in full force, but now it was grounded, not compulsive. Erections were stronger, but more importantly, intimacy felt real. I wasn't chasing novelty. I was seeking connection. I no longer needed a screen to feel aroused. I needed authenticity. This aligns with what Krieger and Porst, 2017, found. For many men, porn-induced erectile dysfunction can be reversed through abstinence because sensitivity and arousal patterns normalize when overstimulation stops. And beyond sex, I noticed my entire view of women shifted. I stopped reducing them to objects of fantasy. I started appreciating their humanity, their intelligence, humor, and spirit. That change rippled into every relationship, romantic, platonic, even professional. I became more emotionally available, more respectful, and far more in tune with the people around me. By day 90, I felt like a man who had earned back his integrity. Call to action. Have you reached this final phase? Are you experiencing deeper love, stronger connections, or healthier intimacy? Drop a comment below with your story. Someone watching this might be 60 days behind you and needs your hope. What are the 6 unexpected benefits of quitting porn? a deeper dive into the final stage of transformation. After 90 days of walking away from porn, something truly remarkable happens. Not just on a physical or psychological level, but on a deeply human one. At first, you quit porn just to test your willpower, to take a break. But as time goes on, the transformation starts to touch every corner of your life, from your energy levels and brain function to your relationships and worldview. Let's break down the 6 unexpected benefits I experienced after quitting porn. This time with deeper context, expert commentary, and real-world examples that go far beyond the surface. 1. More energy, reclaiming vitality that was always yours. Most people don't realize how much energy they're silently draining through chronic porn use. Each dopamine spike, each ejaculation, each sleepless night browsing, it all adds up. Over time, this leads to what experts call hedonic burnout, a flattened mood and sluggishness due to dopamine receptor downregulation, Voon et al. In 2014. But after quitting, the energy slowly returns. Not like a sudden caffeine rush, but like an old engine being cleaned and tuned. I noticed I was waking up earlier, needing less coffee and feeling less exhausted after mentally demanding tasks. In interviews with former users, many describe this as a lightness of being that comes from not constantly battling shame or fatigue. It's not just about having more stamina, it's about feeling alive again. 2. Improved focus. Mental clarity. Without the static porn doesn't just affect the body, it hijacks your brain's ability to focus. With so many rapid-fire visual cues, your attention span becomes fragmented. This is backed by Kuhn and Gallinat, 2014, who found that high porn use was associated with less gray matter in parts of the brain responsible for decision-making and impulse control. By quitting porn, it felt like someone cleaned the windshield of my mind. I could sit through a full book without checking my phone. I started noticing details in conversations, remembering ideas, and completing tasks without endless procrastination. Several productivity coaches and even ex-porn addicts now include dopamine detoxing in their routines to regain this focus. Your brain relearns how to derive satisfaction from deep work, not just quick stimulation. 3. Higher confidence, reclaiming power over your impulses. Every time you say no to an urge, your brain registers it as a win. Over 90 days, that builds what psychologists call self-efficacy, the belief that you can control your behavior and influence your outcomes. Bandura, 1997. I personally noticed a major shift in how I carried myself. I no longer avoided eye contact or felt guilt simmering beneath the surface. Instead, I began to feel aligned with my values. In social settings, I felt more present, more courageous, and less like I was hiding something. There's a reason therapists often say, confidence isn't about appearance, it's about congruence. When your actions match your intentions, your confidence becomes unshakable. 4. Better decision-making. Clarity that drives smart choices. Quitting porn cleared up mental clutter, which had a domino effect on my decisions, from daily habits to long-term goals. Without the dopamine distractions, I found myself actually prioritizing what mattered, saving money, improving my health, nurturing relationships. According to Dr. Andrew Huberman, the brain's prefrontal cortex, responsible for planning and judgment, starts working better when dopamine isn't being hijacked by artificial rewards. In simple terms, you stop chasing short-term pleasure and start building long-term fulfillment. In my own journey, I stopped reacting emotionally to stress and started responding strategically. Whether it was in dating, business, or my personal health, I began to choose with clarity instead of compulsion. 5. Stronger sexual function. Healing from the inside out. One of the most profound and surprising changes was in sexual performance and desire. Before quitting porn, I had experienced what many men call flatline periods or even erectile dysfunction, especially in real intimacy. Studies like Krieger and Porst, 2017, have documented how porn-induced desensitization can lead to weaker erections and a lack of sexual satisfaction. After 60-plus days, I noticed stronger morning wood, more consistent arousal, and better control during sex. But more than that, sex felt more intimate. It wasn't just mechanical, it was emotional, present, and meaningful. A real-life example, a friend who struggled with performance anxiety for years said that just 45 days of abstaining from porn restored his confidence in bed. No pills, no therapy, just giving his brain time to rewire. 6. Healthier relationships. Seeing people, not objects. Perhaps the most beautiful change is how your relationships evolve. When you stop watching porn, your brain stops objectifying people for momentary pleasure. You begin to appreciate depth over appearance, connection over stimulation. This has been supported by qualitative research where participants noted increased empathy and deeper emotional intimacy after quitting porn. Prowse et al., 2015. For me, I stopped checking out women as if I were browsing a catalog. I started listening better, respecting boundaries more, and becoming a better partner and friend. This benefit doesn't just show up in romantic relationships. It improves how you treat your family, co-workers, and even strangers. You start seeing human beings, not roles or fantasies. If this breakdown gave you clarity, motivation, or hope, please do me a favor. Hit that like button and share this video with someone who needs it. Also, subscribe for more real talk and practical advice. And don't forget to comment your biggest takeaway or any questions you've got. I read everyone. How to successfully quit porn. Practical strategies that actually work. Let's wrap it all up with a roadmap. If you want to go 90 days without porn, or even just the first 7, here's what worked for me. Backed by neuroscience, therapy, and raw experience. 1. Start small. Set a short-term goal. First, don't say I'm quitting forever. Start with 7 days, then 14. Build momentum. Just like with fitness, you get stronger as you go. 2. Journal daily. Track the journey. Write down your triggers, emotions, and victories. Even 1 sentence a day keeps your mind aware and intentional. 3. Replace the habit. Don't just quit. Redirect porn filled a role. Boredom, stress relief, loneliness. Replace it with workouts, cold showers, meditation, hobbies, things that build you instead of drain you. Practice self-compassion. You will have urges. You might relapse. That doesn't mean failure. It means you're rewiring years of behavior. Treat yourself like a friend, not a failure. 5. Find a tribe. Don't do it alone. Join online forums like newfound. Talk to a therapist or confide in a trusted friend. Recovery thrives in community. Backed by science. Why this works: brain structure recovery. Porn changes the brain. Quitting helps restore balance in the striatum and prefrontal cortex. Kuhn and Galina, 2014. Dopamine rebalancing. Less porn equals fewer spikes equals more enjoyment from real life. Voon et al. In 2014. Sexual rebooting. Removing porn helps your arousal system sync with real-life intimacy again. Krieger and Porst, 2017. Emotional health. Anxiety drops. Depression lifts. Self-esteem rises. Prowse et al., 2015. The science is catching up with the anecdotal wisdom. This isn't just about quitting porn. It's about reclaiming your attention, your relationships, your energy, your life. So ask yourself, who could you become if you stopped watching porn for 90 days? Final thoughts. Is quitting porn right for you? Let's be clear, not everyone has a problem with porn. For some people, it's a tool for private pleasure, a form of self-expression, or even a component of an otherwise healthy sex life. There are individuals in loving, respectful relationships who engage with pornography occasionally and responsibly, without it interfering with their mental health, productivity, or self-worth. And that's important to acknowledge. The conversation around porn shouldn't be rooted in shame or judgment, but in self-awareness and personal accountability. But here's the critical question. Are you still in control, or has porn started controlling you? If you find yourself watching even when you don't want to, if you feel guilt or emptiness after each session, if your motivation, sexual function, or relationships have suffered, then maybe it's time to reflect. Maybe what started as curiosity has evolved into a compulsive behavior that's slowly draining the life out of your passions, connections, and ambitions. Experts like Dr. Paula Hall, a renowned psychosexual therapist, emphasize that problematic porn use isn't about morality. It's about impact. She explains, when pornography use starts interfering with your real-life goals, values, and relationships, it becomes an issue worth addressing. And neuroscience backs this up. The brain rewires itself based on habits, both good and bad. So if porn has been your go-to escape, your brain may have adapted to that shortcut, sacrificing long-term satisfaction for short-term pleasure. Quitting isn't easy. It can feel like breaking up with a toxic partner who's always available, never says no, and offers instant gratification. But freedom begins when you reclaim your right to choose, not just react. When you quit porn, even for a trial period, you give yourself a chance to rediscover authentic desire, deeper intimacy, and genuine motivation. You become more present with your partner, more confident in your choices, and more connected with your purpose. You begin to feel alive again, not numb and distracted. This isn't just about stopping an addiction. It's about rebuilding yourself, your self-control, your energy, your relationships, and most importantly, your belief that you are capable of change. And yes, relapses may happen. Cravings will come. But every day you resist is a day you retrain your brain and rewrite your story. So, is quitting porn right for you? Only you can answer that. But if you've watched this far, it likely means something deep inside is ready for a reset. Try it for a week, then 2, then a month. You have nothing to lose, and a better version of yourself to gain. Before you go, take a second to support this message. Like this video if it spoke to you. Subscribe if you want more content that challenges the norm and uplifts your life. Share this with someone who might be silently struggling. They may not say it, but they'll thank you. And most importantly, comment below. What's been your hardest challenge or proudest win in your journey with porn or any other habit? Let's build a space where honesty meets hope, because your story matters and your voice could help someone else find theirs.